I don't really get on with labels, especially because I've been painting for years and then really went quite deep into the photography world. I think for about 4 years, I spent a lot of my time photographing the built environment around me. So like my walk to and from my studio, lots of buildings inside and outside of derelict buildings in Peckham. So the project spaces that I set up are all in some sort of state of dereliction. And it was sort of like the interest in those buildings and trying to understand why I was interested in them led me down the path of taking photographs. So I've got a huge archive of photography, but the whole time I was taking photographs, I was really aware that I'm obsessed with paint. And I was taking a lot of photographs of painted surfaces and I was looking at the paint on the surface. And actually the colours that I found present in those places are what has informed my paintings ever since. So the sort of pink and the rust colour that I use a lot goes back to one specific photograph that I took of a pink door, which is behind the Old Kent Road on Wagner Street. And it was like just a pink door that was like patched up over time. So it had reds and pinks that didn't really match. And I think I've come back to that photograph again and again. I'd just like to say I'm an artist and I use lots of different media in that. They all feed each other, I suppose. The photography feeds the painting, feeds the sculpture, and then back again. I feel like my thoughts and my ideas around memory are really quite abstract, and the way that I'm pulling memories in from my own life, they're so disjointed. And I'm not trying to tell a specific story or narrative in any of the works. It's much more about ideas around our existence and ideas around our own mortality and how that relates to time and how we move through our life. So I think working in this sort of non-representational way is more apt to those ideas than it would be if I was to put a more narrative theme throughout the work. I think I'm drawn to objects that are actually really specifically from my own childhood or specifically in my everyday life that I see a lot of. I just collect all the time. It's an archive. If I see something and there's something about it that resonates with me, I'm like, oh yeah, I've got to have that. I like the idea that they have their own histories embedded in them. But what that history might be or what that story is something I'm not working with. I'm not dealing with that. It's an act of transformation, basically, that takes place in the studio. Once it becomes mine and comes into the studio, then it's the sort of fair game, and it can become and be mixed with other found objects that actually has, no reference to each other until they're put together in the studio. I was looking specifically at things that reference our size as humans. So there's doors and windows, and I think I was originally painting on found windows, so windows that are taken from the street that people had chucked out, and painting on the glass. And then after the windows came the tent fabrics. So now I'm painting on tent fabrics, and they also reference us because they're made to house us as a temporary shelter, so they've got windows and doors and zippers. So when I'm making a painting, I'm thinking, it could be a window, or it could house a window, or it could be the surface of a building or a doorway or a portal. The work I'm making at the moment are predominantly on military tent fabric. So they are brought into the studio and they're huge. So what I tend to do first is, like, the actual process is scrub them, clean them, dry them out, and then cut them, because some of the pieces are 10 meters. So I'll cut them into pieces that can fit on the studio floor, and then I will paint on the floor, nowhere near thinking about the end result. It's just intuitively putting paint down as a sort of grounding base. And then I'll decide to cut a piece out that might get stretched, or I'll cut a piece out that might turn into some sort of tumbling sculptural piece. Once they've taken their form, either sculptural or a stretch painting, then I'll start to think about what they might become, what the end result might be. But often it oscillates between knowing and not knowing. So I'm reworking or repainting parts of this. I made it a couple of years ago. So she's called Mother, and I feel like she's properly like a female character in her own story. So I think this one speaks a lot to the idea of materiality being a metaphor for like the passing of time and how we grow old and how things fall apart. So this is a huge piece of tent fabric. This would have been some sort of vent, but I like the way it kind of references the human body or even our clothing. There's something that sort of pulls us towards it on a human level. Maybe it could be the cuff or something from a shirt, or like there's toggles. And often when a painting's working really well, it's missing something because it's not disruptive. It's too polite, or it's too easy on the eye. And for me, that's kind of not always doing what I want it to do. So I'll have to try and push it to make it, disrupt somehow, or have something odd about it that doesn't really work. Strangely, that for me makes it work. Even though I'm using a really varied palette and there can be really quite bright colours, I'm interested in making the work look as if it already exists in the world. So I'm always knocking back my colour. So I might use a pink, but then it kind of needs to be a bit of a dirty pink, or it'll have some sort of dribble coming through it that might look a bit like rust or something like that. So yeah, I'm always knocking the colours back a bit. I think the palette's changed over the last sort of 4 years. When I first started working on the military tents, which they're actually dark green, I wasn't painting them white first, I was literally just painting straight onto the green. And what happened is all those colours turned kind of turgid and quite dark. So for a good couple of years, my palette was determined by that. And often the paint was being sucked in by the tent fabric. So they all were tinged and sort of darker. More recently, I've been trying to warm the colours up and actually bringing in sort of like oranges and reds, but making sure that their palette was sort of much warmer, because I wanted to push more in the direction of this idea of nostalgia, almost like thinking about things through sepia tones or old photography. There's a certain set of circumstances that I know that is finished. Composition is one of them, but that usually sort of comes together quite early on. Some sort of harmony within the work, but then also something that disrupts the composition and disrupts the harmony. So it's not that I know it, I'll just know it when I see it. Or often I'm thinking about it, I just want it to look like it already belongs in the world. One of the things I was thinking about, and that is that all artists are sort of referencing their own experience of their life. When I was growing up, I moved around a lot. So every 2 years, we moved house as a family. So all of my memories, when I'm trying to retrieve them, have to be rooted in where I was at that time. I think a lot in my work is trying to sort of find that sense of belonging, or how place is incorporated with our ideas around memory and belonging. I think when I'm looking at the built environment, I'm often thinking about how I sit in the built environment, what its relationship is to me and my life, much more like on a psychological level than not only a physical level. So that's how all of the themes are sort of like tying together. It's like memory from place and time, how that relates to belonging in the built environment where I live in London. I've been living in London for 25 years, so I feel like I'm very rooted here. This sort of sense of belonging that I have when I'm walking the streets here, and how that feeds into all of those different ideas or sort of thoughts around that. I try not to look at too much art when I'm making my own work. I really strive for originality of thought and of output. If I make something that looks like something else, I'm quite often a bit perturbed by that, and I'm like, okay, well that's a problem for me. I don't know if it's easier. I just know that it's something that I strive for, and that is like trying to find a way of working or of mark making or making work that is original is really difficult. There's been, so much done. It's impossible to do something brand new. But I think it's important for artists to think about that originality in their work and not just regurgitating the abstract expressionists or figuration that you can see throughout history. I think it's important for us to do that. It makes the most exciting work, I suppose.